Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Giribharadhari. Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Giribharadhari. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yamunatira Vanachari. Yamunatira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Giribharadhari. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yamunatira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Jaya Radha Radhanata Radha Radhanata Radhe. Jaya Radha Damodara Radha Damodara Radhe. Jaya Gaura Nitai Gaura Nitai Gaura Nitai Jaya Gaura Nitai. Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Shri Shri Radha Radhanath ki, Shri Shri Radha Damodar ki, Shri Shri Nitai Gaur Hari ki, Hari Nam Sankirtan ki, Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki, Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. All glories to the assembled devotees. Vancha kalpadarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyevacha patitanam pavanabhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna, thank you for the kind opportunity to absorb myself in some aspect of Srimad Bhagavatam. And I've been listening there following on Facebook Live. Although sometimes it's not so easy to hear the sound, but it's nice to see the devotees at the temple. Everybody's getting a rotational chance to do the classes, and by which we are hearing Srila Prabhupada's words and the realizations of devotees. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narotamam devim saraswati vyasa tato jaye udiraye nasta prayeshu abhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke Bhakti bhavate naistake. Om namo bhagavate vasudevaya. Om namo bhagavate vasudevaya. Om namo bhagavate vasudevaya. So we've been allocated to read Canto 4, Chapter 13, Text 26 and 27, of which they are very short purports. 26 does not have a purport and 27 does. So I'll just read 26 and then we will recite 27 together. You got copies of the verses? One. Okay. Text 26. So, Canto 4, Chapter 13, Text 26, the chapter titled The Descendants of Dhruva Maharaj. Text 26. Tamuchar Vishmitas Tatra Yaja Manam Atart Vijaha Havimsi huyamanani nate grinanti devataha. The translation of that: the priests engaged in the sacrifice then informed King Anga, "O king, we are properly offering the clarified butter in the sacrifice, but despite all our efforts, the demigods do not accept it." Text 27. So here we can do the word for word and line by line. Rajan Havimsi Adhustani Shradhaya Asaditani Chandamsi Ayata Yamani Yojitani Dritta Vratai Rajan Havimsi Adustani Shradhaya Asaditani Te Chadamsi Ayata Yamani Yojitani Drita Vratai Rajan Havimsi Adustani Shradaya Asaditani Te Chadamsi Ayata Yamani Yojitani Drita Vratai Rajan Havimsi Adustani Shradaya Asaditani Te Chadamsi Ayata Yamani Yojitani Drita Vratai Rajan Havimsi Adustani Shradaya Saditani Te Chadamsi Ayata Yamani Yojitani Drita Vratai Very good. Rajan Havimsi Adustani Shradaya Asitani Te Chadamsi Ayata Yamani Yojitani Drita Vratai Rajan Havimsi Adustani Shradaya Saditani Te Chadamsi Ayata Yamani Yojitani Drita Vratai. The translation word for word. Rajan, O king, Havimsi, sacrificial offerings. Adustani, not polluted. Shradhaya, with great faith and care. Asidatani, collected. Sorry, let's repeat that word. Asaditani, collected. Te, chadamsi, the mantras. Ayata, ayatayamani, not deficient. Yojitani, properly executed. Drita vratai, by qualified brahmanas. The translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. O King, we know that the paraphernalia to perform the sacrifice is well collected by you with great faith and care and is not polluted. Our chanting of the Vedic hymns is also not deficient in any way, for all the brahmanas and priests present here are expert at executing the performance properly. Please repeat. O King, we know that the paraphernalia to perform the sacrifice is well collected by you with great faith and care and is not polluted. Our chanting of the Vedic hymns is also not deficient in any way, for all the brahmanas and priests present here are expert and executing the performances properly. The purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. It is the practice of the brahmanas conversant with the science. It is the practice of the brahmanas conversant with the science to pronounce a Vedic mantra in the right accent. The combination of the mantra and Sanskrit words must be chanted with the right pronunciation, otherwise it will not be successful. In this age, the brahmanas are neither well versed in the Sanskrit language nor very pure in practical life. But by chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, one can attain the highest benefit of sacrificial performances. Even if the Hare Krishna mantra is not chanted properly, it still has so much potency that the chanter gains the effect. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangam Langayate Girim Yat Kripata Maham Vande Shri Guru Dinatarinam. So it's a short purport, and the context, as you well know, from the third canto onwards, is describing the genealogy, the descendants of Swayambhuva Manu. And at that time, Swayambhuva Manu was the ruler of that Manvantar. So within the day of Brahma, there are different periods that are ruled by administrators who are placed in those positions as the rulers of the universe. There are 14 of such Manus in one day of Brahma. Lord Brahma's day is 4.32 billion years, and then the Manus occupy that day. Each Manu is 305 million years. So in the day of Brahma, so Swayambhuva Manu was there, the first Manu, and now we are halfway in Lord Brahma's day. 50 years have passed. And we are in the 28th cycle of the 4 yugas in which Vasvata Manu is reigning, the son of Vivashvan. So, Vaivasvata Manu. So the genealogy is being described of Swayambhuva Manu, and we see at that in that third canto, his daughters are described. Who can remember their names? And the most famous, Devahuti. Right? So and then their genealogies are being described, and then it continues into this canto. So the context is Sutta Goswami is speaking to Shonak Rishi in Naimisharanya, and he's recounting the conversation between Maitreya and Vidura. He's describing that conversation. When the Viduras insulted by Duryodhana, then he left the palace, and he then chose not to take part in the war but go on pilgrimage. And so he was wandering throughout Bharat. And in the interim, the war took place, everyone was vanquished, and then the Pandavas, they began their journey northwards, and one by one they fell. So it's explained that Lord Krishna, in the interim, because he also loved Vidura so much, that Lord Krishna also instructed both Uddhava and Maitreya Rishi in the science of Krishna consciousness. So Maitreya, before the war, he had visited the palace of Duryodhana. Shri Shri Radha Radhanath ki jai. Shri Shri Radha Damodar ki jai. Shri Shri Nitai Gaura Hari ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So Maitreya Rishi had visited the palace with the hope of stopping the war, and he told Duryodhana not to engage in this warfare. But Duryodhana, with his arrogance, he was disrespectful. So Maitreya had cursed him that you will lose the war and you'll be defeated by Bhima. So that we know in Mahabharata that came to pass. So Maitreya then retired to the banks of the Ganga to continue his bhajan. And then Vidura was wandering, and then he came. Third canto, you'll see he meets Uddhava, and then they have a discussion about Krishna's pastimes in Dwaraka and Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan. And then Vidura wants to know more, but then Uddhava directs him, you go find sage Maitreya. Because Krishna had told Uddhava that he must direct Vidura to Maitreya Rishi. And Maitreya Rishi becomes the spiritual master of Vidura. So now this conversation is going on and it continues. So therefore you'll see the references to Maitreya and Vidura in conversation. So this is a wonderful history which cannot be captured by the rudimentary tools of academic history. And in fact, what has happened when the Indologists, which is a group of researchers created by the British government to research the so-called the history of India, they researched, but with the agenda of trying to compress the history of India into a Judeo-Western idea, a Judeo-Christian Western idea of history. And therefore, they do not accept the large spans of time Yesterday I had occasion to take part in a South African Police Services Diwali function. Due to an earlier invitation that I responded to at the station, then they kind of now have become my friends, befriended me, and invite me. So I went to speak there. There was an Imshlaruzana and there was a very mixed audience. Wonderful. I felt it was a good opportunity to speak to people that would never encounter in a general, they would not come to our temple, so we'd rather go out. So there's a lot of non-Hindu persons there, Christians and so on. And we spoke about Diwali and the significance and Lord Ram's time scale. So the Judeo-Christian time scale, they believe that the earth is no more older than 5,000 years. So I said, Lord Ram, 4.3, at least 1.2 million years ago in the Treta Yuga. So I spoke it matter-of-factly because we accept this large scale, the large time scale. So in this verse we are seeing the history unfolding of the descendants of Dhruva Maharaj. So now you've gone through so many lovely leelas from Daksha and his curse and counter curses, and eventually to Dhruva and Dhruva's austerities and how he meets the Lord and so on. And eventually Dhruva returns to the spiritual world in the Vaikuntha airplane. And subsequently now we are reading about his descendants. So there's a large number of personalities described, and I don't remember all of them, but there are many, many names. And we now see a descendant by the name of King Anga. He is performing a sacrifice. The verse prior to this, text 25, says, Sri Maitreya speaking to Vidura, "My dear Vidura, once a great king Anga arranged to perform the great sacrifice known as Ashvamedha. All the expert brahmanas present knew how to invite the demigods, but in spite of their efforts, no demigod participated or appeared in that sacrifice." So the brahmanas were qualified. They were able to chant mantras very precisely and with the proper consciousness within the Vedic system. This is actually still in the fruitive section, the Karma Kanda. Therefore, the demigods were being invited. And there was a time on this planet when the demigods would personally come and they would take their whatever's been offered to them in the fire sacrifice personally and return. But with the passage of time and the deterioration of the consciousness of persons and the deterioration according to the age in Kali Yuga, the demigods, they don't really want to even look at us, let alone come here to this planet. So it's quite a sad situation. So one may want to know, how is it that we are speaking about demigod worship and so on in a book that is Dharma Projita Koitava, that is free of the cheating propensities. So the Bhagavatam has 10 subject matters. Atra sarga visargascha sthanam poshanam utaya manvantara ishanukata nirodha mukti ashraya. So the sarga and visarga are the primary creation and the secondary creation. Primary with Lord Krishna expanding to Balaram, and then the Purusha avatars. And then after that, you have Lord Brahma being created from Garbho Dakshaya Vishnu. And then he creates the universe. So primary, secondary. Sarga, Visarga, Sthanam, then the cosmology, cosmic, the planetary systems are described in Bhagavatam. Poshanam, protection, how the Lord protects the living entities. Uttiya, the creative impetus of the Lord and Lord Brahma. Manvantara, the change of the Manus. So this is where that is fitting in that category of the 10 subject matters of Bhagavatam. So the Manus are rulers, and for the welfare of the earth, the kings that come in their line, they engage with appeasing the demigods for the success and prosperity of their kingdoms. But you'll see that in the course of their evolution also, then they eventually will leave their thrones, hand over, and then they will retire to the forest in which they will continue to evolve their spiritual advancement. And several of them then they will attain moksha, which is generally liberation. And then others will also attain the lotus feet of Krishna, depending on to what degree they have access to this knowledge and so on. So therefore we'll find there's this emphasis on the demigods. So now the king has a council of brahmanas. I do want to request that if I can finish by 8:20 today. I have an appointment in town at 9 o'clock, so just 10 minutes more. So the king has a council of brahmanas. And the Kshatriyas, who themselves are like Raja Rishis, they take counsel, and they, whatever ails them and whatever advice they want, they approach. So here, king is now doing the offering after beginning the Ashvamedha Yagya to establish his power. Great kings, you see in Mahabharata, Ashvamedha Yagya is done by Yudhishthira, directly instructed by Krishna to do that. And the Ashvamedha Yagya consists of releasing a horse in the choose very carefully, a beautiful stallion. It's even described that the horse must be white with black spots. All very, very detailed. Much detail is given about that. It's a very complex ritual. So the Ashvamedha Yagya is performed, and now after the horse roams and then comes back after a period of year, then the rituals continue by the way of yagyas and so on. And now we are seeing that the brahmanas are saying, "O king, we know that the paraphernalia to perform the sacrifice is well collected by you." He did everything correctly. The paraphernalia, everything is with great faith and care, and is not polluted. Everything was perfectly done. Our chanting of the Vedic hymns is also not deficient in any way. So they are expert, and they understood that the brahmanas had not mispronounced any of the mantras, and they are executing the performances properly. So whenever yagyas would be conducted, then they would have all the priests chanting, but they would always have one person or two who would be listening for the correctness, and if there's something was chanted wrong, they would repeat, he would point it out, they would chant again. So in that way, they're always kept to the correct standard. So Prabhupada says in the purport then, that the combination of the mantra and Sanskrit words must be chanted with the right pronunciation, otherwise it will not be successful. So, given that we all have come from different backgrounds with different accents and so on to Krishna consciousness, can you just imagine how the Sanskrit, it is so possible that we are mispronouncing much of the Sanskrit. Right? Even when we tried this verse 27, now we were going a little bit here and there. And we try to pronounce the stroke over the A means long A. So we try to go Rajan, Havimsi, Adustani. You try to keep it right to the pronunciation. But it's difficult if we're not used to the training. So they are declaring that they've done everything correctly, so what is the difficulty? So given that these two verses are part of more of the unfolding of the Leela rather than the philosophical aspect, you'll see that the Leela will unfold to where the king comes to learn from the Brahmanas that he has no fault in this life, but in his previous life he committed an offense, and therefore that karma is unfolding now, in which he cannot get the benefit of his yajna. So the points I want to focus on here is, we do not have to be concerned to become great Sanskrit scholars, because the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra chanted by us, and as Prabhupada says in the purport, even if it's pronounced incorrectly, still it has the potency, right? And we can see that if you, perhaps in Russia, you might Hare Krishna, and if in China, maybe Hare Krishna. So there's the sincerity, and the chanting has its potency. In fact, I was listening to a class from Giriraj Swami some time ago when he was here. He said the name of the Lord is so potent that even when it is in separated syllables, it will have its effect. Like if you say the word harmony, Hari is contained in there. You get the benefit. So we see Maha Mantra is so powerful. Therefore, in this age, the Maha Mantra is the spiritual sound vibration, as is declared in Kalishantarano Upanishad. Iti Sodashaka Namna Kali Kalmasa Nashanam Nata Parantara Payo Sarva Vedeshu Drishyate. Sarva Vedeshu, that in all of the Vedas, these 16 names, Iti Sodashaka. There's no other way. It is the only way. So by Srila Prabhupada's mercy, then we have received this mantra. And that mantra is the only thing for this age. If we can even begin to understand the rare gift that we've had. Sometimes things are so simple that we overlook its significance. Right? It's so simple, it's staring us in our face, and we overlook it. For everything that we do in Krishna consciousness, all begins with the holy name. Any potency that we develop from that in our services comes from the holy name. And therefore, you're fortunate, especially those who are living in the ashram here, you have the morning program, and in which you're encouraged to attend, and chant most of your rounds at least in the morning, right? Most people can do at least 12 comfortably in the morning before they go into other services, because some take a little longer, some take. Another point that I'd like to mention before I'm going to finish off a little early. You see that the kings, the great kings, the Raja Rishis, they were surrounded by the council. They had the Brahmanas. So despite all their strength and their valor, they still took advice. Now, in terms of our own practice, who would you say is your authority? Who would you go to for advice? We have our Diksha Gurus, or when we did have our Diksha Gurus present, we could always speak and ask, clarify. But then we also learn that we have to go beyond just our Diksha Guru, because we have, in fact that's Kanishta if we only speak to our Diksha Guru, because we have within our ISKCON structure so many wonderful devotees, seniors. Technically we have a temple management in place to attend to us and for whom we should consult in the absence of our spiritual masters. And they also encourage that I am not here, you take the instruction of the temple management and so on. You conduct yourself according to their directions. And in fact they may get displeased if you are complained about, right? So now, so the point is here, great kings, King Anga, Yudhishthir Maharaj, they all take counsel. So where does that feature in our lives? Because we have our independence to do different services, and the independence sometimes can translate to activity where we also disregard some advice, or not checking, not seeing whether what we are doing is actually approved or not. Right? So I had a query about this one unit called IIHE, which is pitching up here and there on WhatsApp chats, which is called ISKCON Institute of Higher Education. Prior to COVID, there was a feeling that because I am involved with digital education, there's a feeling that this is such a wonderful platform to do preaching, and right, through BYS. So then I thought, okay, let me do a pilot study. So I did 3 programs with 3 families, and it was like wonderful. It's like 20 people attended, and then COVID came. 2.5 years lockdown, right? So that became such a wonderful platform to do preaching. So then I'd approached Vibhu Chaitanya Prabhu, and I said, Prabhu, this is a platform we could use, and I'm seeing the interest and so on. And at that time, Bhaktivedanta College did not have the capacity to do that. So I said, let me do it. And Vibhu Prabhu granted that permission, and we created a little unit, ISKCON Institute of Higher Education, with the play on higher, right? Higher thinking. So that became authorized, and it has its success, because every time you do a class, there's like 60 people at least come on that. So it's a forum in which now I had an independent thought about it, but I took some authorization about it. So then now here and there some people are querying, like, what is this, is it, and that. So but the point is, these projects should be authorized and not done independently. Anything that we try to do shouldn't be done independently. So we have so many different projects in mind. We want to develop this, develop that. So we should try to get some advice and then develop the project, because with the advice comes the blessings, or consultation comes the blessings, and when the blessings of the senior devotees are there, then things will unfold nicely. So there are many other things that are done like that. So personally, how do we do it? So there should be, I just need to get maybe from you a response in terms of consultation and a personal commitment to how we engage with a group of seniors to gain advice and direction about what we do and what that means for our own personal consciousness in Krishna consciousness. Any response? Yes, is there a microphone? There's one there.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Smita Prabhu. I have maybe one comment, but also a question wound in. Whilst we can take advice and shelter from so many Shiksha Gurus, the inevitable difficulty is that people have different opinions, even on the spiritual path. Even our acharyas have different opinions. It doesn't make one less advanced or more advanced. And so that's the difficulty when there isn't one voice of a Diksha Guru.
Yeah.
That then you're opened up to many opinions. And the different opinions can come from spiritual places, but they may not be antagonistic towards you, but they also may not know you with full depth. So how do you encounter that? How do you deal with that sort of scenario?
Yeah, that's really an important point, because we're not Mayavadis, and therefore these different opinions are certainly important. But for us who are working under a particular authority, then they ought to have a vision of what their project is unfolding like. And therefore, those become priorities. And sometimes we may have to subjugate our own project to the greater project that is unfolding in terms of the local vision. And if we keep pleading our case and we point out the benefit of that, and we ask for the chance to do it and say, let's try it, and so on. And then by cultivating that relationship with the authorities in a submissive and friendly way, rather than locking horns with them on your, then they become amenable to saying, okay, let's try it and see where it goes. I think it's all about their attitude also and how we approach it. Yeah. Does that make?
Yes, it does, Prabhu. I feel like it's true, but it pertains maybe more to the scenario of a project. But I think the guidance that we seek from seniors may go on wider range topics, like what you do with your life,
yes,
choices that you make, where you may not have a direction, but you look for direction. So I think, anyway, it's just a comment, like it can get sticky.
Yeah, that's where the personal instruction from the Diksha Guru is often so important, and we still rely on that. Like at some stage in the past, myself also, I was Bhakti Tirtha Swami and His Holiness Bhakti Chaitanya Swami. They called me to a meeting and said, we don't have a temple president, so will you do this At that time I was still working, I had a little daughter, I knew my practical things to do for that. So I said, Marja, I can't really do it right now, it's not practical, I have to earn. He said, no, we'll give you some stipend, you work. Then I said, Maharaj, I am respectfully, there's so many devotees who have been in this situation, and the promises have not been fulfilled, and they are left so aggrieved with their situation. I don't want to be in that situation. I'd rather serve. I said, no, we'll sign this contract and all that. I said, then even if there's a contract signed, I won't have the heart to take ISKCON to court, if anything. I said, but I'll consult with my spiritual master who's coming in 2 weeks. So then when my spiritual master came, I approached him. He said, no. You serve on the weekends and in your holidays. You just do that. So he knew my situation. And that's true. We have to consult like that. So I guess it's also the Achintya Bheda principle, in which we have these differing types of opinions, but ultimately you have to exercise your intelligence also to see that, right? But then the bottom line is that we are approaching an authority, we are taking advice, and we are not being antagonistic. We're taking it in the spirit of what it's being told to us, like that. Right? For the many junior devotees, the rules and regulations would have to be there, that you follow this now. And then with time, with your own intuition and realizations and so on, as you develop, you will be able to accept the best of the different categories of advice and create a decision based on that. Thank you. I'll stop there. I have to go to an appointment in town by 9. So, all right. Thank you very much for your kind. Thank you, Rukmini Mataji, for asking me and giving me an opportunity during this month of Kartik, at least, also. Thank you. Shri Shri Radharadhanath ki jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Gaur Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol.